Good morning, everybody. I think we're going to get cracking. Slightly lost on time and where we start, but let's give it a go. Thank you. I'm going to start by thanking you for choosing to attend this session out of the other four. You've made a choice. And it's for that reason that it sort of grates on me a bit that I've got to start by making a confession to you all. That confession is I am not a social media expert, even though I'm talking to you about social media. So sorry about that. I'm just going to have to muck on by. But I'm hoping that won't be a problem for two reasons. Firstly, social media has probably only been around in any meaningful sense, maybe 5 years, even less than that in terms of everyone starting to come on board. So I'm sure a lot of you have done whatever you do as day jobs for longer than that, and you probably wondered to yourselves whether you're an expert or not. So I'm certainly not going to say anyone's an expert. But the second and more important thing is that social media itself, the nature of social media, I doubt whether in this room there are any two of you who have the same ideas, the same need, the same approaches and same use of social media for your own objectives. So it's the beauty of social media is that it's your own personal online digital space to use in the way that best meets your objectives, your requirements, your audiences. So it's very much you are the experts and not me. So if you'd like to come up one by one, and we won't do that. The point I'm making is actually what I'm going to do. Social media has worked very well for me in my context, and I'm going to share with you how I've used it and how I feel it's benefited me, in the hope that will illustrate points to you and you can take away things that may work or things that you wouldn't do the way I've done it. So the point is my journey, and I come very much from a commercial legal services context. So it's a different context, but I think there'll be ideas and concepts in common. And of course Miranda is following me with her view from Hackney Law Centre, so it'll be a bit more specific. So I'll start, if I may, briefly, just a bit of all about me, but I think it's important so you know my background. I have since the 1980s until recently been a barrister's clerk, which is, I guess it's confession number 2 really for those of you who've ever dealt with barrister's clerk. But I spent most of my career in the very traditional conservative part of the legal services market, working for chancery sets, commercial sets of chambers from 1988 through till 2012. So my point is I'm coming really from the conservative side of the legal services market. I'm not any kind of sort of digital social media evangelist or anything like that. Social media has been really useful for me on both business and personal fronts. Now, in 2012, I joined a business called Riverview Law. You may or may not have heard of, but it was certainly well known for perhaps having made the biggest splash out of all of the new model alternative structures that arose from the Legal Services Act. It launched in 2012, it made a huge impression, and social media was really at the forefront of its ability to get on the market quickly. And that was 2012, back in the very early days of social media adoption, certainly in the legal sector. It also put me in a position where I think it was so successful as an early stage startup that it meant loads of business came into Riverview Law that we couldn't service. So I ended up being in a position where I had to outsource lots of work and use lots of legal service providers. And I found social media a very good way, from a buyer's perspective, to choose people whom I could trust to outsource my work to, both in the UK but also overseas. I ended up outsourcing things in the Middle East and the US. On a personal level, social media has been very successful to me. The article you'll see on the left, it's the same screen, on the left in the Lawyer, that was something I wrote on the day Riverview Law launched, about Riverview Law, and I had a phone call at the end of the day. That very day it was published online from the CEO asking me for a drink, and I started working for them a week later. So likewise, I have been for some time and still have a regular column at LexisNexis Future of Law. These are both relationships that I've developed mainly through being on Twitter, where I started off using it as a news feed, and you start having dialogue with the Lawyer, LexisNexis, whoever, and then you start becoming involved, and you almost accidentally become a commentator on the legal services market. So that's a bit about that's sort of where I've got to and where I'm coming from with my value from social media. This I think is probably the most redundant slide in history. It's one of those ones you see knocking around where everyone tries to tell you in the time it takes you to sneeze somebody's posted a zillion tweets. I don't think I need this anymore. People get right that social media is a big deal and here to stay. I don't think anybody's going to say it's a passing fad, or if anyone wants to say that, be my guest now. But I don't think we need to dwell on that. I think we get that it's here, whether we like it or not. Our competitors will use it, our potential recruits will use it, and people we connect with will use it. So it's a thing that's here to stay. And again, just briefly, a bit more evidence on the legal sector. So they now have their annual awards for things like managing partner, which is a very again traditional awards event where they have all of these well-recognised firms vying for social media prizes and awards. So I'm just going to talk a bit, emphasise that I'm not an expert. Here I am going to tell you that it's media that's social. I think it's important to understand the basic concepts of social media, and I think lots of people, even if they've been doing it for ages, get that wrong, and you think about social media as Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. Let's think about what it actually is. And I want to start with the word media, or medium, which is defined as it's a means by which something is communicated or expressed. It's actually it's not really a thing. It's a vacuum through which a message passes. It isn't the thing itself. So I don't think many people look at it this way, but it is in that respect very similar to a handwritten letter, a face-to-face meeting, a telephone call, a text message, an email. All of these things are just different forms of media, and they each have their own characteristics. So you might send a letter or something in writing to convey formality, a face-to-face meeting, trust and that sort of connection, a text message for a short, urgent, I'll be 5 minutes late, that sort of thing, or an email just to be annoying, really, because emails are a damn nuisance. But social media is very much another form of media. So it's not that the message you send can permeate through any different type, but it's not a thing as such. And I think it's important to remember that. But the different characteristics that I've just referred to, social media has the key one of reach and speed, which are two actually. But this is the uniqueness of social media, and where it can do good and bad. But you can reach a very wide audience very, very quickly. Now we've seen publicly there are some downsides to that, but I think we're all maturing, and social media is maturing. So I would say to you, don't fear this. Take advantage of it. It's not as if you have a slip of the tongue when you're speaking. Social media, you actually get time to think and sit down and type things. So as long as you respect that, the reach and speed to me is purely a benefit, and not anything to be feared. The other aspect of the social media label is the social side. So social, in a word, means connecting, it means engaging, it means dialogue, and then that's another unique characteristic of social media. It does enable proper interaction. This is absolutely critical because we've talked about the other forms of media. Social is the one way in which it enables you easily to get across your personality, how you feel about something, and that emotional connection. And in whatever line of work we're in, we are competing for people's attention. We're competing for bandwidth, whether it's for sales, for generating supporters, generating customers, or generating recruits. And one way to differentiate in this world where marketing is sort of homogenous is that ability to show who you are. And being online enables you to do that in a way that's impossible otherwise, other than coming to events like this that take up rather a lot more time. So the social is a key aspect of social media. The other factor is that you get, when somebody connects with you on social media, you get their permission to engage with them. They have connected with you. They want to hear what you've got to say. They want to follow you. So you've got to respect that. But you've actually got their attention. When you contrast that with a mail shot that you get in your inbox, which is delete. So again, it's something really precious that you've got and that social media gives you that you don't get from elsewhere. A little illustration of the social and the good and bad of social. I'll just give you a second to absorb. But again, if we think about this in a real life scenario, you've got the worst scenario, the broadcast. If I were to see you afterwards in the break, and I'll come up to you and shake your hand and thrust my card into your hand, Jeremy Hopkins, social media guru, I'm brilliant, I'll get you a zillion followers by next week. That's your kind of, oh God, go away. You can't do that online, exactly the same. But online, somebody can just go click and you're gone, rather than have that awkward, thanks Jeremy, I'm going to the loo now. So compare online behaviour with reality. It is so similar. So in the same way, at an event after this, if there's somebody you know and respect, quietly in a corner talking, and there's 2 or 3 people listening to them, and you're wondering who they are, well, this is the social scenario. Who are these people? Well, they're talking to my friend so-and-so. I think I'd probably want to know them. So social media gives you that same environment, but in an online way that's quicker, and you've got an oversight of it, so you can really benefit from the social side without any of the awkwardness. A bit of I'll rattle through these because these are in the slides, but really there's no real framework. As I said, everyone uses it for their own reasons, but it is worth just having a very basic think about why am I doing this? What am I trying to achieve? And these are just certain things that examples of what you can achieve or what you want to achieve. Obviously, the reaching sales, as in not in your sector, sales isn't the word, but actually you do need to reach customers, reach consumers, reach funders or influence. And likewise, the influence piece, you need to associate yourself with your particular objectives to enable engagement from the people you want to engage with. Connection is a really important point, and it goes back to what I was saying about being in that room. You can have a look online to see who people are talking to, see how they behave, and you can use it as a filter before you meet somebody. And I've found that terrifically valuable, because I've never met anybody in person where I've met them through Twitter first, seen them, and they've not been who I thought they would be. So it saves you so much time having those meetings with somebody you've never met, where it turns out you haven't got anything in common at all, or you don't like them, or you don't like their approach. So it's a huge connecting tool. It's a great learning tool, and I'll give you some examples of that shortly, but for sharing both yourself, your own experiences, but getting those from others. And obviously everyone talks about the younger generation, the millennials. Everyone lives their life online. I know my kids do. So for recruitment, it's certainly a key objective. A few basic ground rules. Again, they're in the pack. I won't elaborate too much, but ground rules for the way you behave online in order to be recognised, for it to be effective. Consistency, to decide what are the messages you, either as an organisation or as an individual, want to put out there, and what they are, and what your parameters are. Because if you go online and start talking about about access to justice, and then you start talking about kittens, as some people do, you might find you're going to alienate quite a lot of your audience. So you've got to decide what sort of area you're going to play in, and it can be social and personal as well as your professional, provided they're within the same sort of frame, and that's again your own choice. I tend to do my online presence is mainly about legal service innovation and wine, and funny enough, as it happens, those two seem to have quite a lot in common. But I certainly don't stray off and start ranting about things like politics. That's a grey area, because you can quite easily just turn off people who otherwise would value what you're saying. So you've got to decide what your messages are and be consistent. You need to be regular. You don't need to spend all day on it, but people need to expect a bit of presence, because if you go to regular networking meetings of any sort, if you only turn up once every 3 or 4 meetings, your influence wanes. People expect to see you, you're not there. Likewise on social media, people will lose interest if you don't have a presence. We talked about social. The engagement piece is critical. Every opportunity to engage with somebody, even if somebody reposts something you put down, retweets, you can thank them, or you can comment on instead of just blindly putting out a news article, you can do a one-line comment about it saying this is causing us problems, or you can start dialogue, but you can every opportunity to thank somebody, to get a bit of engagement going is important. And finally, and this is critical for organisations, authenticity. It will, because of its nature, if you're trying to put out a message or be something you're not, be a brand you're not, say you do something in a certain way and you don't, it will find you out, because you're out there, people are watching from all angles, you don't know who's watching. Your prospective customers, funders may be looking but not saying anything, and they will see if you're behaving in a way that aligns with what you say your values are and what your brands and your culture is. You'll be found out. So you have to be authentic. You can't hide things online. A quick thing on measurement. Again, it's how much time have we got all to do all this stuff. But it's worth thinking again. If I'm doing it and I'm going to have objectives, it is worth having a look at why you're doing it. So there are tools, and I'll mention some a bit later on. But you can simple things like just looking at how much traffic you're getting on your website as a result of your online presence is important. But equally important is your qualitative analysis. Have I had a good week on Twitter? Have I met people? Have I been talking to people? Does it make me smile? It's a combination, but these all have to align with what you're trying to achieve. But I would say that if you just carry on doing it blindly, you might be wasting your time if you don't realise what you're getting out of it, or realise what works for you alongside your particular objectives. A few case studies, really, just to put a bit of meat on the bones of what I've outlined. I did a consulting project a while back, as it shows on there, for a business called AccuTrainee that was it was a business that recruited or provided training contracts for lawyers, but then seconded the lawyers to law firms. So it had to attract students, and it also had to attract law firms. So here's a Twitter feed that was designed to capture students, to engage them by, you'll see it's posting things, mistakes you can make on your CV, advice from others, Chambers student guide. So it's trying to get itself in a position where students will want to follow this account because it's sharing relevant material, but B, it's showing it cares about helping students. You'll see the second one down, it's also chucking in a small bit of advertising, but we use 1 or 2 of those a day, straight for promotion. Otherwise, don't push the promotion bit. That's not how it works. And then you'll see at the bottom, of course, law firms were the other part of the target audience. So it was sharing some law firm material too. So using it in different ways to try and connect with your different audiences and meeting those objectives. Great example of learning that I mentioned earlier. There's a hashtag. Again, I don't know how many know about hashtags or how many don't, but quite simply, as we heard announced at the start, it's an online label that if somebody wants to follow a conversation, you put that label in wherever you are, whoever's tweeting in the world about this subject, it will aggregate all of those tweets together so you can be in a room with a group of people anywhere. Brilliant example, UK employment lawyers seem to have really grasped Twitter very well. And this is, I'd encourage anyone with anything to do with employment law to regularly follow that hashtag, because you'll see there are law firms who are very good at it. They're very good at sharing other people's information. They're not broadcasting. They're doing smart things. You'll see there, that was from on the back of the Clarkson fracas incident, and there you've got a firm doing its bit, promoting itself, but actually giving genuine insight and sharing valuable content on there. But you also there's some very good barristers out there who really do share, and you can observe conversations and see networks grow where people are actually being generous with their knowledge, discussing judgments that have just been released, and it's a great example of a really powerful sharing and learning community that's come about on Twitter. Just a quick snapshot of some of the tools you can use on Twitter. If you think this is all a bit much, how do I follow all of this? This is a very simple tool called TweetDeck. That's my own, you can make up your lists and columns. So I have my own little column at the favourites column is the first one where I only follow about 20 people. So I can, people who I really need to see, you can easily keep on top of all of that all day. I've got notifications, people who actually engage with me, so I make sure I don't miss any opportunity where somebody mentions me. I've got law journals, and this is how I started using Twitter, purely to look at a news feed. I simply followed the Lawyer Magazine, Legal Week, a few other relevant publications to me. So that's my news feed. I don't have to look at emails. I don't have to subscribe to newsletters. I see that all from my TweetDeck. And IHL, those are in-house lawyers, and in my day job, those are my customers. Those are the people I'm trying to reach. There's a lot of them on Twitter. So I don't think there's anything of great relevance there, but I'm seeing my key target client base, what they're talking about, what's concerning them, again, in a very easy to use column format. A few tools. Now, in the pack, I put an explanatory document in the pack, but unfortunately it's come out as a slide and it's minuscule, so I'm not sure whether it might be readable with a magnifying glass. So I won't go too much into these apps, but these are all apps these are apps, right? So that you can put them on your phone and use them very quickly. There are things there that enable you to find your news, find material that's relevant to you, enable you to put it in a place if you haven't got time to read it, using Pocket. It's got a thing called Buffer that will enable you to put posts out. If you've got half an hour at breakfast time where you do all your reading, you can chuck things into Buffer and it will send things out every hour or two or whatever you set them, so that will keep that regularity going if you're worried about that. There's Hootsuite, that's a column-based thing that you've just seen. Passel, that's an easy way to comment and repost on news items, and WordPress, that's a blogging platform. As I say, that you'll see in the pack what there is. But the point is, these are very easy, quick, simple to use things that you can install on any platform, and they all operate across platforms, and they're free. And it doesn't take much time to set them up, and you will find you can quite easily have your little routine of looking at your own information, sharing it, storing it, capturing it, and it will take you no more time than it would take for you to read the stuff that you would be doing anyway on your daily trawl through the relevant news. A bit on blogging, and here's an example. I just want to show blogging is something that obviously takes a bit longer, but it's a great way to really show that you care about something, as well as showcasing your real in-depth knowledge. So if it's a community issue, or a specific legal issue within the community, great opportunity for you to actually really put out there that it matters to you, and you understand it, and you know all about it. This example here is from Gordon Exall, who's a barrister in Leeds, and a few years back started this blog about civil litigation based on all the developments that are going on with cost budgeting and general procedural changes, litigation funding, that sort of stuff. And he has managed to become an online authority on it. I know loads of law firms who follow him and engage with him, get him to come in to talk to them. So it's a great way of illustrating, if you know what you're talking about, you're reading the stuff anyway, right? This guy reads his judgments every day because that's his day job. He posts them on there, and he shows he's enthusiastic. So if you're selecting a provider, if you're buying anything, you want to select from somebody who cares about what they're doing. I'm not quite sure what it says about if you care that much about civil litigation procedure, but each to their own. But it's a great example of how blogging can be useful and powerful. And I think just a final thing, really, just an added benefit that I hadn't realised when I was going into Twitter, but really the sort of community and the network it's built and enabled me to draw on. You'll see on the date on this was some time ago. This was 18 months ago. I was doing a talk like this to a group of small businesses, and just put out a couple of tweets saying, "Can you give me some material? What do you think about Twitter?" And I had literally instantly over 30 responses like that, and these are from people. There's some lawyers, there's a law enforcement officer, there's an employment law specialist, a legal marketing person, there's somebody from LexisNexis, a tax lawyer, that sort of stuff. Don't worry too much about what they're saying, but this is the sort of engagement and help you get. And I did this last week because I was on a panel on Friday for an event, a practice management event, and there was a focus on the US, and I did the same thing for asking for US and Canadian lawyers to tell me what they thought about Twitter, and I had 39 responses instantly. But I guess the one that sums it up, which I think covers all bases, and Joanna is a legal journalist, and she writes for the main broadsheets on legal IT. And if there's anything in particular that illustrates learning, I think this is the one that sums it all up, which also sums up the pitfalls of being online. That's all from me. Thank you for listening. Miranda's going to talk a bit next, and I think we'll do questions afterwards, despite that.
Okay, morning everyone. So I'm Miranda from Hackney Community Law Centre, and I recognise a lot of you here, not just in person, but because I think we're also social media friends, either on Twitter or on Facebook. So I was going to start by talking about who Hackney Community Law Centre is, but I think most of you know, so I can skip that part, although I'll just say that we're a charity. So I'm approaching this talk from the perspective of a charity, albeit a legal one, but that gives us a slightly different reason for wanting to do social media compared to, say, a commercial business. So the first thing I would say is that obviously we do social media. We have a Twitter page, as you can see here. We have a Facebook page. We're thinking about whether we should have an Instagram account, but that's more photos, so I'm not sure. But those are, at the moment, our two primary mediums, definitely Twitter and definitely Facebook. Just a brief background of the history of our social media presence, why we thought it was important. Matthew Howgate, who many of you here will know, was our manager. This is back in 2011. And he felt strongly that the Law Centre at the time needed to raise its profile. Talk of LASPO, which Lord Bark talked about this morning, the Legal Aid Sentencing and Punishment of Offenders Act, was on the horizon. We were all very, very worried about it. What would it mean? What would go out of scope? What would it mean for our funding? And we knew raising funds at that time was already very difficult. More and more charities applying for the same pots of money, as you will all know if you work for a charity. And Matt, our manager, and our board decided we needed a dedicated human resource to raise our profile and help us stand out. And that's where I came in, and social media came in. So my own experience is that I came to Hackney Law Centre in February 2011 as a volunteer, and I then became an intern. And even though I was a legal intern, I was still encouraged to share my views about the running of the centre. One of the first things I said, as somebody who is, I'm not a millennial, I'm just a bit older, but I am very much interested in the internet, was that its website was awful. You know, if you want to start thinking about an internet presence, the first thing is a website, and ours was absolutely awful. It didn't have what I would call a purpose. It was difficult to navigate. People coming to us who needed help didn't know or did not get a clear idea of how we could help them. It just wasn't doing its job to help us help people. So I asked a good friend of mine, a social media consultant called John Worth, this is his blog, if he might do a redesign for us, because he's very good at this stuff, and he agreed to do it pro bono, which was great for us as a charity, and the result was this, which is slightly retro now, but you can clearly see on the left-hand side how we can help you, how you can help us. So how we can help you are people needing help, how you can help us are funders, etc. And then stories of things we're doing. So that was the result. And I would say what we wanted was to speak to different groups interested in our work, which I think can be roughly divided between, firstly, local people who needed help with a legal problem. They are obviously the most important to us. But after that, local people and law students who wanted to volunteer, because as a charity we rely on an army of volunteers to help us stay open and to help us help people. Thirdly, people interested in social justice issues who may not have needed any help at all, but are just interested in law centres in terms of helping people and access to justice and social justice. Another reason we wanted to engage online was to try and meet potential business partners and collaborators. So they were another target audience. And then lastly, I would say media and also academic researchers. So we had lots of different people that we wanted to connect with for a number of reasons. And our internet presence and social media presence needed to do that. So January 2012 now, Facebook account is regularly updated with national news stories and comment and campaigning, but wasn't very personal. Our Twitter account had 5 followers when I started. I think it's now up to, nearly 4,000. I thought that our social media presence should try and give people a flavour of our varied and interesting personality. Jeremy mentioned that word, and I want to repeat it. It's very important that there's a personality involved in an organisation. And our personality was eclectic, it was multifaceted. So just to explain, we're a law firm, but we're also a charity. We're based in Hackney in East London, which is edgy and it's deprived, but now it's also trendy, it's up and coming, it's gentrified. So we had all of these kind of elements to our local area. And because of this, our clients were also multi-ethnic, multi-faith, multilingual, and had multiple problems. So this is what I wanted our social media presence to try and convey, the complexity of our area, the complexity of our clients, and our role within it, to all the different people who had their own distinct reasons for visiting. So when I took over the tweeting, again, there were 3 main aims, really. The first was to engage with organisations and individuals from a Hackney perspective. That was very important, that we were rooted in community. Our title is Hackney Community Law Centre. Sometimes people call us Hackney Law Centre, but we're not. We're a community law centre, and we wanted to give that prominence. So if any local business, voluntary group of parents, residents followed us, we would instantly follow back. If they're from Hackney, I will follow them back, just to show that we are connected. Another group we wanted to engage with were people interested in social mobility. We especially wanted to attract followers in the student community, the kind of people who didn't think law was for them, who lacked contact, because as I say, because we are a community charity, we want to encourage people from ordinary and non-traditional backgrounds to enter law. So we thought if we reach out to those people, we might get students who never thought about going to law because they were told it's not for them, and we wanted to interest them. And then, thirdly, we wanted to show that we're also amazing lawyers. We are legal. We're not just a sleepy charity that, people should feel sorry for. We also wanted to show that we're professionals and gain that kind of respect by the types of people and organisations that Jeremy has just spoken about, barristers and the like. So that was the background. How did we go about doing it? Let me just see. Yes, here we are. So here's some examples. Real stories of real clients with real problems to shine a window on our day-to-day work. So here's one example. Hopefully it will open. Yeah, so here's Nathaniel, who's one of our amazing housing lawyers who came back from court and he was really happy and he said, I've stopped an eviction, because the housing benefit was messed up. So we tweeted that just to let people know, that this is what we do. We do housing sessions in a local library. So on National Libraries Day, which was about a month ago, this was a Saturday, I tweeted this out, again to let people know that this is the kind of work we do and to remind people. So real life stories, real clients, real problems. We also want to drive people to our website through Twitter. So when we write a story on our website, nobody would know about it. But if I tweet about it, people will know. So Owen Jones, the social commentator and journalist, became one of our patrons. And we tweeted it and put a link to our website. So people would be driven through to the website and then go and read all about Owen becoming our patron. And then be interested in our website and subscribe to our newsletter, as you can see there, and encourage people to come back to the website. So to get them off Twitter into real life. As I say, encouraging students, junior lawyers, to have the confidence to go into law, means we are also a resource for students. So we want to tell people what's going on. We want to be one of the go-to places for students to know about events. So again, this was about 2 Saturdays ago. Doughty Street Chambers said that it was going to be hosting some phenomenal events on International Women's Day, and I just tweeted about it. And again, I would say that increase in Twitter followers from 5 to now over 3,000, lots of those are students who think, if I read Hackney Law Centre, they're tweeting about events I need to go to, about court judgments, etc. So we're also helping people to help their careers and then to help other people. I said we wanted to be taken seriously professionally. So celebrating our legal successes, we won a big case in the Supreme Court last May. We changed the definition of intentional homelessness. And this was in Saba, our client, who we had fought the case for, came into the office. We just told her, she burst out crying. We wanted people to have a real flavour of what it really means when you win a legal case for somebody. And this is her. This is the face of the case. Because normally people will tweet, decision handed down, appeal allowed, etc., but they don't humanise it. And this was humanised. And again, people could be driven, as I say, onto the website to read the longer story about Saba, who was, as I say, absolutely overjoyed. So, yeah, another one I've put there, Jeremy again talked about smiling, making people smile. So this is Anwar, a war veteran who had lost a leg. He had post-traumatic stress disorder, all sorts of awful things, and we helped him to claim back. He was owed a lot of housing benefit after the DWP had incorrectly said he should have been able to go to work. And he just turned up one day with a forest of flowers and, we were just so overwhelmed, and we smiled and we said, well, we want everybody to see this, because we're happy he's happy, and all the people who support us to see, well, this is why you're supporting us, this is what it means. People like Anwar, so shy, but he agreed to pose for a photo. So those are some of the examples. Benefits. The title of this session is called What's the Point? Well, here's the point for us. We've been able to do a number of things because of our social media presence. I would say one of them is actually fundraising. The Atheist Church, you're probably all wondering what on earth is that, so I'm going to click through. Again, this is on the website. This is Andy. He is the local vicar, if I can call him that, or minister of our local Atheist Church. They do good, not God. Apparently, they discovered us on Twitter, and they suddenly decided that they were going to raise money for us. and they every Sunday for a month, all of their they have a congregation. I went to their service; it's absolutely amazing. They have cellos and poems, and I'm a Christian myself, but thoroughly enjoyed it. Mary Wollstonecraft used to worship there. Anyway, so I went along, met him, thanked the congregation, took some photos, and put it on our website afterwards. And we only met Andy and this local church because of social media. £500, it's not to be sneezed at for us. It's a lot of money. As I say, we're a charity. Again, fundraising in a more formal sense, so engaging with funders. They're very pleased if you give them recognition online. So here is Trust for London, who funded our employment project. And Deanne, our wonderful employment lawyer, won Legal Aid Lawyer of the Year. No, sorry, not Legal Aid Lawyer of the Year. Sorry, Law Society Excellence. We've won lots of awards, so I forget. I'm sorry. Won a really big award, Law Society Excellence Award, and we tweeted about it, and Trust for London are delighted because that's what funders want. Are you making an impact? Are you showing that their money is being put to good use, and are they spending their money in the right way? And they were so pleased, and they congratulated Deanne, and then we went back to them and said, thank you so much for funding her post, enabling her to win, to become an amazing lawyer, and they were delighted. And we actually got renewed funding from them this year when we applied again, and I think that's a lot to do with us actually making them look good. So fundraising in both a small local sense and a corporate sense. Media attention, we're often asked to comment on all sorts of things that are going on. So here's one of our local papers, East London Line, who wanted to talk about the criminal courts charge. Now, we're not criminal lawyers, but we have a view, and so we're happy to give a comment. And so that helps our kind of profile. So here, here's our comment here, just saying we think it's an affront to fairness, encourages people who are not guilty, etc. And that was printed. So we've been able to get, again, more publicity from people who would never know what a law centre was. Very importantly for me, new partnerships. So here's an organisation called Legal Geek, who are a load of tech geeks. That is what they do. They know nothing about law, they're just geeks. And again, through social media, Jimmy, who's this very entrepreneurial, enterprising geek, said, we love what you're doing, we're interested in social justice, we want to encourage the geek community to get interested in kind of legal issues. Why don't we have a hackathon for you? I said, what on earth is that? He said, well, it's when a whole load of geeks stay out all night, and they're all on their computers, and they have competitions, and they have Red Bull and pizza and coffee, and then they just design a technological solution. And I thought, wow, this sounds, I haven't got a clue what you're talking about, but this sounds great. And basically on the 19th of March, Jimmy and different teams of geeks are all going to be competing to build an app or something for the law centre that will maybe help us to help clients. So, maybe an app that can go on people's phones and they can come straight through to us, or a chat, and we're going to judge, and the best one will win a prize. So that came through social media. And again, if it works, and if these engineers, as Jimmy calls them, build some amazing technology, we might go to funders, because there's lots of money out there at the moment. Government is obsessed with stuff, and, maybe some of this money might come to us. So that's one partnership. And then another one, Wigwam Legal Services and One Grayson Square. Again, that was another social media connection. One Grayson Square is the Chambers. They said, right, we want to do online surgeries. And, all you would have to do is just come onto our website and click in, and then a barrister can have a face-to-face conference. And it's not Skype, so it's secure, which is important to us as lawyers. Documents can go up. And we did this. And this is Fergus McCombie from One Grayson Square, who sat at the other end of the computer. And we had our normal employment advice surgery, with our clients come in, sitting next to Deanne, and being seen. And because Fergus is kind of 15 to 20 years qualified, knows his stuff, all of these clients got advice in 15 minutes. They were delighted. And it helped us to be more efficient because there's no legal aid for employment. So that's a really good partnership. And we're even thinking of starting now an evening online civil surgery for kind of middle income. Lord Bart talked about people who are in the middle, not just at the bottom now, who can't afford legal aid, maybe small businesses, and we'll do that with them. So we see our role as not just providing legal aid services, as I say, but also to access to justice. It's a social mission as well. So that's been a very good partnership with Wigwam. So those are some examples. Those are some of our benefits, and vastly, as I've put, raised a more respected profile. So just briefly, why do I think it works for us? I would say because we look like we're having fun. We're trying to stay optimistic. Personally, the Law Centre does not engage in Twitter spats with people. I don't understand why people spend hours going back and forth arguing, why? Just be positive. There's no need. You could follow each other, take it offline, or, there's no need. There's also now a hashtag LC Today, which the Law Centres Network, our umbrella body, set up. That's a hashtag of all of the different law centres and what we're doing. And that really boosts our morale, all of us, to know that we're not alone, that all the different law centres around the country are doing amazing work and talking about it. I've been told, instructed though by Nimrod at the Law Centres Network to tell you about some of the things you do need to think about. I tend to be kind of bouncy and optimistic, but he said, no, you've got to also, tell people what they need to, warn people about certain things, so I will. There are some challenges, I must say. Whoever does it needs to do it on top of their day job, unless you're prepared to dedicate some resource to it in some way. Caseworkers often need chivying a lot to tell you. Very unassuming are lawyers, very brilliant, but don't want to tell you they've won something, and I have to drag it out of them. Then they're absolutely delighted when they see the reaction, but it's a real struggle to say, do not forget to tell me, have you been in court today, what's going on? So you've got to be somebody who's prepared to, be a bit bossy and go around kind of pestering people, which I am. Some people will find what you do contentious, migrants, people on benefits, etc., but if we don't tell our story, if we don't tell their story, nobody else will. So I think it's actually worth it. Somebody needs to speak out for those people. It's a must. What's the point? Jeremy already talked about the millennials. I found this article when I was preparing for today, just confirming what we all know, children spending more time, this scientific evidence. Now it's not just us, even though we already know it. It is the future. People no longer want or have time to read things hard copy. Look at the independent newspaper going under. And I think Twitter especially, and Facebook, allows you to digest things in bite-sized chunks. You can click on a link to go through for more information, or you don't have to. Nobody's forcing you. So I would say we won't stop doing it, even when I'm long gone. I think the organisation will want to continue, because we would just become isolated again. We would disappear. And the final thing I would say is, because we do social media, I think we feel like we're part of something bigger than ourselves. And as I said, that's important to us, that we are part of a legal community, a community of migrants, of people with problems, of disabled people, of students, etc., and helps our eclectic personality and our mission. So social media, what's the point? There absolutely is a point.